For me, it's kind of, digital's kind of been a buzzword for a while without many people really knowing what it meant and what they were going to do with it. So as a council, we sat down probably about 2 or 3 years ago when the first kind of austerity cuts came in and looked at how we were going to start delivering services differently, how we were going to do it more efficiently than we could do, and the tools that were available to kind of help us do that. Our challenge isn't as big as Bristol's, we're not as big a city, so this year our shortfall was about 25 million, but again that's out of an operating spend of about 150, so it's still a sizable chunk of money that we had to find. I like to start with this slide just because most people don't know where Peterborough is or have never been there, and it's actually not that bad. So just don't go through it on the way to Leeds or York or somewhere else. You can get off and pop round. So for me, we talk about digital. Really what it comes down to for me is it's kind of staff efficiency and data. Everything we do in the council really is around these two things. But if we make the staff more efficient, we're making the services more efficient, we're therefore servicing the residents better. And data is key. The amount of systems we run at the moment, the amount of data that we hold that sits in silos, that we can't access, that we don't then utilise to help us deliver better services is a real problem. So this is where it changes, see, because I use little pictures of clouds, whereas Gavin uses square boxes. Very different. So under the staff efficiency, we've got ICT efficiency, but we've also got non-ICT. So you're changing the way that the ICT department are going to work. They're going to be a very, very different department going forwards. Traditionally, you'd find them sat in the basement, answering phone calls when things break or when they go wrong. We want them to be a forward-facing department. We want them working with teams. And by moving to cloud services, to this platform we've put in place, you're taking the back-end tasks away from them. They're not doing the patching, the maintenance, the back-end things. They should be more forward-facing, helping departments. The non-ICT side of things is obviously looking at how staff work, how they operate. Currently they're tied to their desks, they're all on Citrix, using Thin Client. How can we free them up from that? How can we get them out and about, make them more mobile, reduce the number of offices we've got, really change the way that they've worked for years and years. And I'll come on to that because that's probably the hardest element of the entire job, is actually changing mindsets of both the ICT department and staff in general. Breaking down silos, so as I said, as a council we have hundreds of different applications all sitting in different silos across the council. None of them are really talking to each other. You'll find that you've got a housing system with a social care system with probably a regulatory service system. The three of them don't talk to each other. So if you have a problem in a single household, we would currently send 3 different officers out to go and deal with all those problems individually. Real-time data, this one again is key. So we've currently got an HR system that's been replaced. It's brilliant at telling us who was sick last week. We can pull a report every Monday and find out who was sick. What it doesn't tell us is who's sick that day, or how that's actually affecting the services we deliver. Do we need to bring staff in from other departments to help in certain areas? Number of social care cases, for example, might be being affected. If you could bring 2 or 3 people in from housing or from reg services just to do some of the admin on that, you're actually keeping online and interact with your social care cases. But again, we've got no visibility of that. And then moving to a single reporting tool. So we have, again, various different methods of pulling reports. The old HR system has to come out of Cognos. You've got SQL, we've got ClickView, we've got business objects. And again, so you pull in reports that then don't even speak to each other across the rest of the council. So that real single view is what's missing. This is deliberate. As a council, we looked at everything. So our model is effectively, the operating model of the council now is a 3-tier model. So at tier 0, you've kind of got your online self-serve, e-forms, everything like that, but also the front end of the call centre. So what we're trying to do is push more and more services into a call centre environment. So the view is that the earlier you catch them, deal with the instance, the cheaper and more efficient it is. So within our call centre moving forwards, there will be social workers, there will be planning officers, there will be legal officers, basically everyone in the council is up to move into that environment. Behind that then you've got tier 2, which is kind of your more specialist managed services, and then tier 3 is anything that's really a highly skilled sort of service. So safeguarding children, for example, would sit in that tier 3. It's not something we'd ever try and deal with in a call centre environment or a lower tier. So to support that move then, we've done a fair bit of work over the last sort of year and a half. We've revamped the council website completely. We've started using a tool called Form Assembly, which is just an online form builder, but it's designed to work with Salesforce. So kind of coming back to Gavin's point about having things that are interoperable, everything we use as a council is basically designed around Salesforce. And I have to say that because they're both sitting there looking at me, one's hiding at the back. But we chose Salesforce 2 years ago basically to be the core system within the council. So if your system doesn't work with Salesforce or isn't designed to interact with it in any way, shape or form, we're not going to be using it going forwards. So Form Assembly is designed to do that. For the first time we've actually given power back to people on the estate to design their own forms. So previously it was a call into ICT, can you build me a form? You'd have a meeting, you'd sit down, you'd go through the form, then IT would go away and build you something completely different, ask you if it was all right. You'd go through various iterations before it was eventually published. Sean Evans, who's our housing manager, I gave him Form Assembly on a Friday, and on a Monday he pushed 20 forms live. And he sat and just built them himself over the weekend. It's very, very simple. Likewise, Salesforce Communities, if you go into the hall up, it's just showcasing it with the Aylesbury Vale, what's it called, Digital Services Hub. And then the Marketing Cloud we've just installed. So again, it's about how we interact with residents. We give them the channels that they want to interact with us on. But part of that is also the listening element. So we're able to listen to conversations about the council that aren't necessarily to us. So we can step in and take action before something happens. Rather crudely, I obviously call it dealing with it before something hits the fan. But it's that kind of approach. It's dealing with things as early and as soon as possible. So we're kind of moving through the council tiers. We then have the Salesforce Service Cloud as our CRM system. That will effectively become the golden record of each of the customers or residents that we have within the city. And then we have the layer of sort of applications that council staff use. So we're about to move to Google Apps. We're going to be doing that after Christmas in the new year. Hopefully January, February and March we'll be rolling that out across the estate. The Force.com applications, we're currently looking at ripping out some of our legacy software and replacing it with custom built software on the Salesforce platform. So at the moment we're doing housing, regulatory services, the educate modules within children's, and the built environment system, which we currently use Uniform, and replacing those. There will be more after that, but there's odd applications. Public health have got an application, selective licensing have got an application, so there's various things happening constantly on that platform. Box is our collaboration file share tool, and then as I mentioned, Exceed HR system is again built on Salesforce. So again, we're not just interacting sort of left to right, we've got that real front to back interoperability. Part of the reason for moving down this route as well is so staff have a choice. So we want them to either work from iPhones, from iPads, or from Chromebooks, or if necessary from the desk. But it's about giving them the freedom to work in a way that they really want to work. Some of them can't work off iPhones, some of them just don't like them. The vast majority are actually loving the Chromebooks. I was asked to buy 500 and I think it's going to go up to 1,000 very, very quickly. Really good tools, but also a fraction of the price of a laptop. No encryption software needed, no antivirus software needed. And then sitting behind it, we use ClickView as our main sort of corporate tool, but we are looking at, again, at the Salesforce Analytics Cloud. Kind of makes sense that we use theirs with everything else. And again, this gives us that real view of what's going on in the council, what's going on with customers. We can start using the performance team in a much better way. So instead of currently what they do is the static reports that go out every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday, this is all around having dashboards, real-time data, and actually deciding on the spot how you change the way you deliver services. And again, this is going to take some getting used to from staff. It means managers are moving to an outcome-based model of managing, so they actually have to manage the staff as opposed to not managing them, which some of them do at the moment. And really, it is about driving change and using digital and using these tools to really force change across the estate. It's the only way we're going to become more efficient. Some of you obviously talk about security. We use a system called Okta that sits behind all our cloud apps. That's a single sign-on identity management tool. Allows you basically single password onto the estate, and then you can access all of your applications from within Okta, and they actually sit inside that environment. So the minute someone leaves the council, you take them off Active Directory, they've lost all access to any cloud applications. And then the big one really is currently with the legacy stuff, we're moving everything into Amazon Web Services. So there's a whole host of reasons why we're doing it around staff efficiency. So we do want people to be able to work remotely, we want them to be able to work from anywhere, off any device. We want real-time data, we want to understand what's going on. Savings. On the council's budget that was released last week, the customer experience programme, which this kind of enables, has a saving of about £7.5 million against it. The ICT side of that is delivering 6.5 million of the 7.5, which was nice when they told me about 3 minutes before CMT. But it is a huge change and a huge saving that can be made, but ICT spend might actually increase. But what we're doing is offsetting any ICT increase by making bigger savings. So the basic argument I've always had with people is my IT budget is about £6 million, the social care budget is about £75 million, which one do you want to save 10% of? So if mine goes up by 10% but theirs comes down by 10%, you're still quids in at the end of the day. So don't always focus on, is it cheaper to move to the cloud, is it cheaper to do this? It's about what it enables in the other departments and how they can change the way they work. Important one, removal of hidden spreadsheets and databases. The first piece of work we did around replacing an application was with our special education team, and it took a fair while to get something out of them about how they wanted to work. But when they did, they actually gave us about 20 things they wanted their system to do that their current system couldn't do. So when we obviously pushed them on well, how they're coping with it, you started to find that there were all these spreadsheets and databases everywhere hanging around. None of that data obviously sits in the application, so when we're pulling reports, we're not seeing any of that information at all. I won't go through them all, but obviously we'll talk about them in the sessions a bit later if you want to. So really this is where we're at as a council with the systems that are either live or about to go live. Google, as I said, is coming. They'll be added to this in the new year. I don't want to panic too many people at the council just yet. We have had the Google bus up there, it has come around and done its event. And in the main, most people are quite excited. Finance hate me because they love Excel. And to be honest, I'll probably let them keep Excel because it's one battle I don't really need at the moment. Especially as I'm trying to get money for other projects signed off. But the ones we haven't mentioned, public stuff, very quickly, is a My Peterborough app, but it's actually got a full CRM system behind it. So someone reports pothole or fly tipping or something, there's a workflow behind it that goes directly to the right person. And Transversal is a very, very clever FAQ system that allows us to keep the web pages within the council very clean, very simple. And if you go and ask planning what's important about the planning department, they'll write pages and pages and pages of text. So we've been able to cut a lot of that out, put it in as FAQ questions, and keep their pages very clean and simple. Challenges. Culture has been the hardest one. Getting staff on board, getting them to adopt new tools, getting them to think about how they can work differently is probably the reason why my beard has gone prematurely grey. Bear in mind I'm only 24-ish. But you do find that you get champions across the estate. So we've got very small teams or pockets of teams who have actually taken on each of the tools that we've given them and are rolling them out and are now rolling them out into other departments. Our child protection lawyers are the biggest fan of Box, for example, because they were going to court with huge bags with paper files like that in them. They now will go with an iPad and they've got access to all their information. ICT guys, for the first time ever, I think we had a power outage about a month ago, and someone actually said the sooner we move to cloud the better, which was the first time anyone in ICT has actually acknowledged that it's a good thing we're doing. Because you're taking guys who for 20, 25 years have worked at Peterborough Council and have historically worked in the same way constantly with the same tools. So we are challenging them, we are pushing them very, very hard. I have had it mentioned to me that you can't be PSN compliant if you're in the cloud, which is nonsense because I am compliant and I do use a lot of cloud tools. It's about generally how you access the cloud, not about where the information is. Cost of self-provision, Google, Salesforce, Amazon, these guys spend millions and millions of pounds every year on security. I've got 2 guys on 35 grand a year who have probably got a budget of about 100,000. They can take care of our data a lot better than we can. And the ICO, I actually presented about 3 weeks ago with the ICO. We did it wasn't a joint presentation, but it was kind of a, this is what we've done in Peterborough, and then the ICO stood up and said, and these are the things you need to consider and acknowledge when you're doing this. They are there to help you and they will work with you. They'll talk you through what model clauses are. They'll talk to you about binding corporate rules. It's not just about safe harbour or anything like that. There's other means to move data into the cloud. And then really at the bottom 3, leadership is key. Getting your senior management on board, using the tools, and really driving that change across the estate. If you can get them on board, the rest will follow very, very quickly. I've just struggled with some of the senior ones because they're very stuck in their ways. And don't tweet that one either, please. And then very quickly, I just want to talk to you about 2 additional kind of things we're doing in the council. Very quick weather station project, 25 weather stations into schools. Primary aim is to educate the children about the weather, and once they've understood about the weather is to then start analysing that data and seeing how their school compares with another school. So looking at some of the rural schools with the inner city schools. So what we want to do is start to build that culture of data analysis within the kids in the city. So the weather stations spread out across the city, various parts. As you'll see, some are fairly remote, or as remote as you can get in Peterborough. Some are real proper inner city schools. It's then published. You can go onto the website, you can pull the data, you can look at certain schools, you can build graphs off the back of it, but there's also going to be an API that you can then pull all this data. So we're looking at working with some of the citizens in the city so we can have a hackathon or some event, see what we can do with this information. But really for us as a council, where we want to get to is kind of identifying any patterns, seeing if there's correlations in how we deliver services, not just at the council, but within the police force, within the fire brigade, within the hospital, and start to use that data for the predictive analysis. Can we actually understand when crime is going to happen or what type of crime is going to happen, depending on weather patterns? Same with A&E. Can we start to plan for that much, much better? So what is a very, very simple premise of educating children with some simple weather stations, in today's world, obviously publishing that, it takes you to a whole different level. And then adult social care. I was at Soccertim, when was Soccertim? September, a month or so ago. And someone did a presentation about there being nothing available for adult social care in this new digital world. And then I did a presentation all about adult social care and data. So we're working with a company who do smart sensors for the home. So these are motion sensors, temperature sensors, door sensors, so on medicine cabinets, front doors, fridges, smartwatches where you can push information to them, tablets where you can have conversations with the elderly or the lonely. This is all instead of the old Tunstall red button pull cord stuff. Red buttons and pull cords are great if you fall over right next to it, or you're conscious after you've fallen over. These are sensors that will actually tell you when someone's fallen over, when someone hasn't moved, when someone's been to the toilet 10 times at night. So you might think they've got a urinary tract infection. You can proactively book them a GP appointment. And again, all of that information comes out into alerts on either iPhones or iPads or Chromebooks, however you want to work. So as a social worker, you no longer work to, these are the 10 people I see every Monday. You'll move into a model of the system tells us which 10 people you need to go and see. We can then start to model this data, we can start to map it again with the weather station data. Is there a thing that says Mr. Smith doesn't get out of bed when it's raining before 10 o'clock? If that's the case, we no longer need to go and visit him if it's raining and it's 10:30. But predominantly what we also want to do is have these alerts go to either residents who live near him or her, or actually to family members. So we can kind of divert that need from the council. So it doesn't have to be a social care worker that goes and visits. And again, a whole host of behaviours, alerts, histories and everything else that you can collect from this. So again, you can start to do your predictive modelling, start changing the way that social care is run, and then feed that back into your other systems. So eventually what I'd like to do is build a social care system on the same force.com platform, but actually have it fed with live data back into it. But I think that's probably a year or so away at the moment. And then savings, obviously key to what we're doing. Cost of someone being in a residential home, cost of someone staying in their own home with alcove, but being safer and looked after, huge saving for social care. So thank you. Hopefully that's given you a slightly different perspective on what we're trying to do across Peterborough and the model we're working to. Thanks.